This pilot takes a collapse. It cravats huge. It auto-rotates. He has to throw his reserve. It barely opens. He crashes in the trees. Today, I'm going to break it down, give you all kinds of tips so this doesn't happen to you. Ready? Here we go.
See ya.
I'm paragliding!
See ya! Hey guys, what's up? This is Ari in the Air. Welcome back to the channel. Stoked you're here. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Ari. I make videos on YouTube to help you have better outcomes in paragliding, more joy, more safety, longer career. I also founded the Paragliding Men's Group as a way to help you have better relationships, more fulfilling personal life, and to get you the communication and conflict resolution skills that you need to have an amazing life. So check that out. It's in the link in the description below. So today, let's watch this video and then we will break it down. Okay, it was sent to me. It was titled Rofon Fail. So I assume that this is somewhere near Rofon, which I don't exactly know where it is. Beautiful Alps for sure. Photon. Hand inside the riser here. Pitch, collapse. Line twist. Autorotating. Auto-rotating, stall, auto-rotating, hand is going for the reserve is out, interacting with the glider, around the lines, luckily breaks free, opens completely. Trees catch the glider, and the pilot lands super soft. Here's a little slow-mo. Oh my God. You see it? Did you see it? Did you see it? Okay. So a couple things here. So we can see that the pilot is flying in this configuration where he's got his wrist looped on his riser and his hand is inside of the riser. We've seen this a little bit. In general, this is not what I think he thinks it is. In a previous video, we watched this pilot from India, Sushant, using a brake technique where he's pulling the inside brake with cross the body technique. Okay. It's totally acceptable, although there are things that you should know about it. So he's pulling the brake across his body. This is not that. This guy is leaning left and he's pulling. He's actually braced against the outside riser. He's bracing like he's doing a sat. Like he's pushing away from the outside riser. This is not, I would not advise this. If you were a super high level pilot and you had this technique, then I would think it was interesting. But with this kind of outcome, obviously he's on a two-liner C. That's what we see in all of these videos. All these collapse videos are all two-liner Cs because people are coming up through intermediate and levels of paragliding, stepping up to a two-liner and having big events. So in general, I think that it would be reasonable for you to assume as you're learning to paraglide that the risers are like lava. Don't touch the risers. Like you're either pulling on the brakes or you're pulling on the rear risers. Don't touch the risers. There are some exceptions to that, but in general, this is not one of them. And as we watch the video, it leads to a complication of his collapse. I would also say that it leads to the collapse because the riser is something you're pushing on. Because he's pushing on the riser, what you're losing is brake pressure, and you're actually not feeling the brake pressure up and down as much as you possibly could because you're pushing on the rear riser or on the riser set in general. Okay, I mean, I kind of want to show you the collapse one more time. Watch. Okay, but here's the thing. I've noticed this in a number of videos, and this is something I really want to point out to you. Oftentimes, people get scared of really strong climbs because they think that the glider is going to collapse. Oftentimes, people get scared of really big sink, but those are times where the air is doing something that's relatively obvious. In this case, he's like looking for a climb and there's like strange, almost silence, like there's no beeps, there's no sink. And in these moments, you need to have a heightened awareness and you need to really stay on guard. So many of these videos are people who are not on guard enough. And there's a number of ways that you can stay on guard. I don't mean that you like need to panic. I mean, you need to keep some kind of brake pressure and be very conscious of your brake pressure because you're feeling for pitch and you're feeling for brake pressure so that you can keep the glider open. In general, for me, if I'm in a strong climb, I'm in a strong climb. That's like, it's obvious what's happening. I'm not like looking out for these like big sharks. Also, like if I'm in really big sink at full speed on a glide, I'm also really on guard because these are moments where like big shifts can happen. So when you get established in a strong climb, it's almost like the safest time of the day. It's these transition areas that you really want to be super on guard, okay? This pilot finds himself not as on guard as he could have been because of his physical hand position and also his, I don't know how I'd call it, like a psychological understanding of like when to be on guard. I think he's probably a little frustrated. Maybe he feels a little low here. But if we scroll back just a little bit, what do we find? Big pitch. He doesn't touch the pitch. So he's actually like distracted. He's thinking about where the lift is. He's thinking about where he's going to land. He's thinking about something other than really being super closely tuned into his glider. Because look, the glider pitches forward and he has no brake input. He starts to push on some brake, but the glider is already collapsing here by the time he's pushing. And what is he pushing on? He's not pulling the brake down. The brake needs to be below his seat board at this point. He's also holding the brakes in a way that I don't recommend with his hands through the brake toggles. I know if you've watched this channel at all, you know that I recommend a half wrap. It gives you more authority on the brakes. And also it keeps your hands from getting stuck in the brakes in case you get line twisted and need to get your hand out to throw the reserve. Okay. So half wrap, basically with no exceptions. His hand is pushing on the rear riser here, and I don't recommend this. Have your hands outside of the riser. If you are bracing on the rear riser to keep your harness stable or to feel like that there's some kind of like psychological or somatic sense of exposure of unsafety and you're pushing on something as a way to like feel safe. I find myself doing this with the foot plate in my pod. I'll push on the foot plate and I'm kind of in my stress. I just kind of push on the foot plate. This might be what's happening here. It's kind of just pushing on this thing. But in general, you don't need to touch the risers, and any force that you're putting on your hands that's not on the brakes is going to dull the feedback that you're getting from the glider. Also, as we saw with Sushant's video where he recovered very well, the problem with having your hands inside of the risers is that when the glider collapses and you go to push it, look at what happens. His wrist is around the entire riser. He's pushing the entire riser set down, and now he cannot pull on the brake line effectively to keep the glider open because his hand is blocked by the riser. If we keep scrubbing forward in the video, look at how far down he pushes the rear riser. Look at where his brake toggle is. This is nowhere near how much brake input you need to keep this glider open. This is like, I don't know the analogy right here, but it's just not a safe position to be flying your glider in. Keep your hands outside of the risers. Keep a very clear line from where your brake is to where your brake would need to be in an emergency, which is from tension to below your seat board as far as you can pull it, ring the bell. Keep that line clear. That's a sacred, important line. It's like keeping the aisle of the airplane clear in case people need to go running out of it when it's on fire. In an emergency, you don't want to have to push around, get around the riser. Your hands should already be outside of the risers. Okay. And I'm not lecturing this guy. I'm sure that he knows this now because he's gone through this, but I'm teaching you so that you don't have to experience a huge collapse to a cravat, to an auto rotation, to a reserve deployment that barely opens when you crash into the trees for you to learn the lesson of keep your hands outside of the risers. Okay. Once you start flying CCC gliders in competition, you can start discussing with your fellow competitors the merits of this technique and you can learn it for yourself. But as far as learning your first two-liner, no. Keep your hands outside of the risers. There's big bumps coming, brother. You're going to want your hands free of any obstruction so that you can catch those. Okay. What then happens is like looking at this frame, it's just disgusting. His wrist is like pushing the riser, 12 inches down. So what then happens is the glider inflates. It's going to rip the riser off of his arm. Look at this frame. Not a good frame here. Now it's ripping the riser off of his arm and up against his neck here. Oh. It clears his head, but now look at his arm. Now his whole arm, almost up to his tricep, is inside of the speed bar line. And his brake toggle is now rubbing on the speed bar line. Also not super good. Look, in this configuration, now his hand is still wrapped around the speed bar line. You got to keep your hands clear of the risers, guys. Seems obvious, right? Also, because his hands were inside of the risers, he didn't catch the collapse correctly. He didn't catch it late, which even if you're late and you put a bunch of brake input, it pressurizes the glider and makes it pop out harder. He doesn't have any of that going for him. The glider cravats very badly. And maybe he's watched some of these videos, but maybe not, because what is our mantra here on these collapse things. Don't let the glider turn you. Don't let the glider turn you. Don't let the glider turn you. The glider turns him. Okay, so if you see, his right hand is pulling on the brake that's connected to the glider that's totally cravated, which will do nothing. The left hand is pulling a little bit of brake right now, but it doesn't do it for long because now his left hand is up. You see this left hand here? You see the trailing edge of the open side of the glider is totally unaffected by the brake. So he is going to let the glider turn him, and now it is auto-rotating to the right towards the cravat as you would expect. At some point here, he grabs a little bit of left brake, which clears him of the line twist, but he does not persist on it long enough. It stalls briefly, but then he lets it go again. He needed to. Honestly, if I was in his position, I would like to think that I would acknowledge that this cravat is too much for me to handle from this altitude. I would pull down on the left brake until the glider stalls, taking it into a backfly configuration. I would take my right hand and pass the right brake into my left hand. This is another reason why you cannot fly with your hands through the brakes like this. You really only want to be at a half wrap. It's way easier to get your hands out of the brakes. Take both of the brake lines in that left hand, bury the brake lines into your lap to keep the glider in a tail slide configuration stalled, reach for the reserve and deploy it. It's not what happens here. He lets the glider auto-rotate, and now he's reaching for the reserve while the glider is auto-rotating. And in an auto-rotation, the reserve is at enormous risk to be caught up in the glider. And if we go back from deployment, look at this. He does like a 720. Look at bag is out right here. There's the bag. Go forward. That's at 34 seconds. So now he just did a 360. Reserve is not open. There now, it's 2 seconds later, and it's out of the bag now. He does another 360, and now it has, look at the spaghetti. This just happened because the glider has hit, the harness has now hit the lines. So now he's spaghettiing the lines. He's 4 seconds into his reserve deployment and 360. Now the lines of the glider impact the reserve once again here, and you can see he's very close to the trees. Now he's 5 seconds into the deployment. Finally, now we're fully inflated 42 seconds, 8 seconds after his deployment. And the glider was not checked as far as its auto rotation. Okay, so don't let the glider turn you. It's really important for you to be able to control the heading when the glider collapses. The other thing is that if you let the glider auto rotate, then a reserve coming out cleanly is just so much harder for the reserve to get out clean. You just can't trust it. And you saw here, the lines almost ate the glider, and spiraling into the trees under a ENC two-liner like this on a lightweight hike and fly pod. It's just like, he's in his shorts, man. It's like, as you can see, I'm just like, it stresses me out. Okay, so the thing about your reserve is that you have to control that glider first. You cannot let the glider develop an auto rotation. You must stall the glider. If there's such a cravat that will make an auto rotation, you must stall it, and you must keep it stalled when you deploy your reserve. So that left brake, reel it in, put it in your mouth, put it around your foot. I don't care what you do with it. Stall that side of the glider. Stall it. This is why I recommend the half wrap. You can pass the line to the one hand, bury those lines, bury both brake lines so that the glider is going to stay stalled, and then deploy the reserve, okay? Don't let the glider turn you. Don't let the glider turn you. Don't let the glider turn you. If it stalls, so be it. Deploy your reserve, keep it stalled. Don't let up on that side that wants to fly. So luckily, his reserve opens. As you see here, the top of this small tree goes in between his lines. That's going to slow him down enormously. And his landing is basically as soft as America's Funniest Home Videos. It's basically a blooper because he comes down so gentle. And thank God he did. I'm so glad it worked out for him and that he lived to learn this lesson so fully. Going back, just to summarize my lessons here, don't fly with your hands inside the risers. Keep the path of brake travel clear. Number 2, when you're flying in transition times between big sink, between big lift, or if you're eerily not finding any climbs, really be on top of your game. Anytime you're low to the terrain, you need to be very alert, aware, having your hands clear, brakes ready to be pulled. He misses a big piece of feedback from the glider here, an enormous pitch. It was very obvious. It was very easy for him to catch, and he totally missed it, and he took a huge collapse that cravated horribly. Okay, got to be on top of it. Then don't let the glider turn you. Don't let the glider turn you. You can't have this left hand up when this left side of the glider is about to fly. In this configuration, this is why acro pilots are at an advantage in cross country, because we look at that and we say, no, that's a reserve deployment immediately. From this altitude, stall the glider, pull both brake toggles down into your lap, and deploy the reserve with the glider stalled, because if you don't stall the glider, if you let an auto rotation develop, the reserve is unlikely to deploy correctly. That's what we saw in this video. He was so lucky that it ended up deploying after almost a 1260 rotation, like 3 full rotations and 8 seconds of stressful for me to watch. I'm so glad you're all right, man. Thanks so much for sharing the video, and to Yannick for forwarding it from his friend. Wishing this guy so many happy flights and safe landings in the future. I wish that for you too. And I hope that you have wonderful relationships and that people love you and that you get to connect really deeply and you get to be your full self in this life, because you only get one of them. So if those are things that interest you, please consider applying for the Paragliding Men's Group or sharing that there is a Paragliding Men's Group with other men in your life, because there are so many men in our community who need the kind of camaraderie, community, and support that this group delivers. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.